We're Understanding the Times 2016, and I'm pleased to have one of my speakers just for a real short interview today, Dr. Mark Hitchcock. Mark, welcome back.
You've great to be with you.
Been here 3, 4, 5 times, and I just want to ask you some real simple questions. We'll post this on our Facebook and other places, but what do you feel is the most significant prophecy-related event of 2016? And there's a whole bunch we could choose from, but what do you feel?
Well, I think probably what's been happening with Iran, the deal with Iran, giving them more money, giving this is a bad deal politically.
Exactly.
But, the billions of dollars that they've been given to foment terror all over the world and strengthening their hand. Also, I think what's happening in Russia as well. I mean, kind of Russia and Iran together, and both of them are mentioned in Ezekiel chapter 38.
So are you saying you kind of see a Gog-Magog alignment beginning to form?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, just here recently, Russia's going to have a permanent base now in Syria.
Right.
And they're selling selling Iran these air defense missiles and all these various things. So I think that's very significant.
And we were talking a few minutes ago, and I think one of the things that has come home to me in a bad way in the last year, 2 years, and there's such an attack on the pre-trib rapture, and it's actually coming from just a few, but they make a lot of noise, and they're influencing a lot of people. And I've always felt Scripture was so clear. Revelation 3:10, we could go through all the illustrations of why there's a. So why do you feel there's such an attack on the truth, particularly of the rapture today?
Well, I think a lot of people don't really understand the pre-trib rapture. I think a lot of people think it's kind of escapism, that we're out of here, and other people have had to suffer. It's different, though. Obviously, all believers go through trouble. We all go through difficulty, but that's different than God's wrath.
And we go through man's wrath.
That's right. Yeah, man's wrath, but not God's wrath. And I think there's been sensationalism out there in some corners. I think some people just don't want to hold a view that a lot of people have held. I think that was kind of a dominant view for a lot of times in churches.
Yes, it was.
Some of the people that are younger, I think, just kind of have a natural idea of, hey, if that's popular, I'm going to hold something else. Preterism's made a lot of inroads. A lot of the Reformed type background of teaching has kind of eroded that. So I think there's a lot of reasons. But I think ultimately, again, Satan's behind these kinds of things because he doesn't want people to live with the expectancy that Jesus could come back at any moment.
Because I recently heard, it's on YouTube, and I'm not going to name the name, and that particular teacher not only denigrated this theology, denigrated people like you even, and denigrated Dallas Seminary. I think that's one of the few seminaries left touching on end times.
Right.
And what I saw, Mark, was the hostility was simply overwhelming. And I don't think this is a theology that we need to start beating each other up over. Right.
What I've always found is, if I talk about people that have a different view on the end times with me, I'm never mad about it or mean to them, but I find that they're very angry towards our view. And that always kind of makes me wonder, well, why is that then?
Do you have an answer?
Well, I think it, and I'm not saying the people that do this are like demon inspired or things like that, but I do think the enemy does have a desire to have people not believe in the soon coming of Christ or any moment coming of Christ. So, again, it's their theology that's wrapped up in all of that, I think. But, what people don't realize is you look at, J. Vernon McGee went to Dallas Seminary. He was pre-trib. David Jeremiah, Charles Stanley, Billy Graham. And you can just go down and list. And, again, someone can disagree with the view. John MacArthur. Someone can disagree with that view. But to me, you can hardly marginalize it and say that it's held by, a bunch of people that are kooks or something like that. These are some of the better-known preachers of the last 50 years in America. So it's not a marginal view.
I think the other thing that I've seen, and this really would be more than 1 year, I would go back probably even to the beginning of the Obama administration, but the isolation and alienation of Israel. Israel is alone. I think she's got the Marshall Islands, and maybe that's about it. She is, of course, the Bible prophesies this, nothing to be astounded about, but my goodness, it happened so fast. Canada gone, America gone.
No, you're right. It's, all the nations are turning against Israel. And, of course, I think it's setting up this person who's going to rise at some point in time who's going to come and give a guaranteed peace for Israel that's going to be so shocking and going to be so welcomed by the Jewish people.
Yep.
who are there. They're going to welcome this because they've been abandoned so much. And so all these things, Daniel 9:27, he's going to come and make this covenant. It's with the many in Israel. So things are headed that direction. But but it's difficult politically to see why we would want to pull away from Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East.
Democracy.
And, of incredible support for our country. So it is, again, you look at these things, though, and there has to be something else behind it. There's another power and energy behind these things.
One last question, and sometimes conference speakers address this, and they actually have different viewpoints. What do you think will take out Islam? And I'm talking end of the end here, probably in the tribulation. Or do you feel Islam will unite with the Antichrist, and the Antichrist will use Islam?
Well, I don't know that we can say for sure. I mean, one of my thoughts has always been, this Gog Magog.
Yeah.
You've got these are the kind of the outer ring of nations further out from Israel. Iran, you have Iran and Libya and the Sudan and some of these other nations that are around and kind of the underbelly of the old Soviet Union. All these Islamic nations, their armies are going to be wiped out in this Gog Magog invasion. Of course, that still leaves. You've got Indonesia.
That still leaves a lot.
A lot of other places. But it does say there as well in Ezekiel, and many peoples with you. So we don't really know. The other thing is we don't know what God will do. A lot of these plagues that come in the end times, those could be localized in certain areas that take out people in certain places. So we don't really know, but somehow I think it has to be neutralized in some way, or they have to receive some revelation that they think gives them the ability then to accept this Antichrist as God. Okay. But now that I would say of all the things in the world today, how Islam is going to fit in with this end time picture and an Antichrist that's going to be worshipped as God. And we can see apostate Christians and people like that doing those things. But how Islam is going to fit in with that, that's an interesting issue. And, I always say about Bible prophecy, look, as things go along, there's going to be a lot of twists and turns. We know the major scenario, but, some of that may become more clear even before the rapture.
We do see through it a glass darkly, don't we?
We do.
With a few things, anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think pre-trib is clear in the Bible, but some other things can be a little bit foggy. Mark, thank you. You're going to be speaking this morning shortly, and I want to thank you for coming. And
it's great.
For
great to be here.
A little bit of opinion here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.